Hello, welcome back to the L1 show, and today we're doing government and security links for you to share with your friends if you have any. We had a slight meltdown right before we started filming, so...
It's really poisoned the mood.
Yeah. If the energy level feels a little off, that's maybe why.
It's like we can do the Level 1 news coast into the weekend, and it's just like...
I'm high energy, but it's anger. And I'm not going to get any less angry when I look at this, because this is infuriating.
U.S. border forces are seizing Americans' phone data and storing it for 15 years. That's not a new thing. It turns out it's been happening so universally that there's a database, and that's what's actually got the attention of Congress. So this headline makes it sound like, oh, there's a new thing that's happening. No, it's been happening so long, and there's so much of a database of it that now people are just indiscriminately searching the database, which has a copy of the stuff on your phone.
Which they're allowed to, without a warrant, for whatever reason.
They can actually do that with 100 miles in inland, which is, what, 3/4 of the U.S. population?
Uh-huh.
So when they ask you to unlock your phone when you're traveling, they're going to plug that in. They're going to steal everything off of it. Just like the cops do, when they take your phone.
And they keep a copy.
For 15 years.
There's so many cat photos in here.
So I guess the only choice these days is burner phone travel, right? I mean, you cannot, but it's not just your phone. Also tablets, any kind of device. They will make you unlock it, and then they will steal the contents of it.
How many times have you been randomly selected, Wendell?
0 so far.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising, with as many electronics as you usually travel with.
Yeah, usually it's, they're just like, why are you, it's like, oh, it's your computer business related, okay. And then they just...
Send you through.
Yeah.
Well, Tornado Cash, boy, that's been in the news a lot, hasn't it? First it was banned, and then people were like, wait, you can't ban this. This is just software. You can't sanction software. How does that work? And apparently somebody at the Treasury was like, gosh, they've got a point. Let's release another press release.
Treasury says that sanctions on the Tornado Cash doesn't stop people from sharing the code. You just can't run it or do anything with it.
You can look at it and admire it, I guess.
Print it out.
Yeah.
Put it on your walls.
Does that mean that ghost guns are fine until you actually fire them?
I doubt it. I don't think that they'll take the same approach there.
I mean, it's just ones and zeros, right?
Everything's a magic number, right? Wouldn't, see, in my mind, if you boil it down to the brass tacks, all software is simply a magic number.
Yeah.
It's like if you went to a witch and you said, oh, witch, give me a magic number, and she wrote 13 on a piece of paper and gave it to you. Microsoft does that same thing. It's just a really big number.
Yeah. It's also really awesome to have the magic number when you're decrypting your movie collection. It's a prime number, as it turns out.
Well, we've got a California triumvirate of stories, and mostly about Gavin Newsom, and boy, do I hate him. But when you look into this one, or wait, no, it was the other one, right? One of these, I was like, I'm kind of okay with that one. Oh, yeah. It's kind of, it's like, well, it's him versus the big social media companies. Who do you hate more? Who's right in this situation? I guess no one has to be, right?
California governor signs into law requiring social networks to post moderation rules. He's clearly never run a forum with users, because when you post the moderation rules, they will find ways to skirt the letter of the moderation rules, but directly go against the spirit.
Yeah, they'll push and push and push, and like, at least in our forum, like we try really hard to not over moderate, but like some people just push and push just because they can.
Just don't be an asshole. How hard is that?
Very hard.
Sometimes it's like, hey, let's introduce more assholes to see if you can be not an asshole to the assholes, and that doesn't work.
So it's all about extremism or radicalization and disinformation or misinformation. You think Gavin Newsom's ever been responsible for disinformation or misinformation?
No.
Remember that time he said to do one thing and then immediately violated it publicly?
Yeah.
That seems like misinformation to me.
Yeah.
And California is also not too happy with Mr. Jeff Bezos. They say that his way of doing business is destroying everything else, and he must be destroyed himself.
California sues Amazon, alleging its policies cause higher prices everywhere. I think we actually covered this better. This is probably like 2 years ago, because we talked about the Amazon reseller program and how Amazon would look into local prices, and it says, oh, these products could be more expensive because there's no other option, and it would sort of bring the price up. That's what California is talking about, but here we are 2 years later. I mean, it seems Has somebody been asleep at the helm?
Also, like, couldn't you also argue that places like Walmart do this exact same thing?
Yeah, they definitely have been for a long time.
Yeah.
See, also diapers.com. Like, I don't understand why California would say this about that. It seems very convoluted when you look at what Amazon did with, like, diapers.com. And that seems like that would be,
a slam dunk, but
yeah, I mean, it would be like AT&T in the 70s all over again, just breaking Amazon into a bunch of small pieces after the diapers.com fiasco. This is diapers.com with a lot more steps, and it's much less efficient than the diapers.com fiasco.
Gavin Newsom didn't desperately need to score political points before a horrific midterm during the diapers.com issue. He probably wasn't even California governor during that time, right? And boy, I bet his pen is out of ink because he has been just signing these documents left and right. And this one is an echo of one that we've seen so many countries try. But the question is, how do you enforce it? They don't have any good solutions here.
California Governor Newsom signs landmark legislation aimed at boosting children's online safety. The bill stops short of saying, we're going to need IDs for everybody to get online. But it sure does sound like that's where they're going.
Now they do. It is going to be on the website to deal with this. You can't have dark patterns and that sort of thing. Who judges that?
Yeah.
no one. It's never going to ever come up in a court case.
And it only affects companies that have 25 million in revenue or 100,000 users that make half of their revenue from users. So, really is just the big tech companies.
Yeah.
That'd be funny if there was a really popular social platform was like, get in early because at $99,999, no more registrations. And we're going to start throwing away money at $24,999.
A potpourri of small businesses that have just under 1 million users. Okay. Or just under 100,000 users.
And we got the big, the chip bill. We got all that money floating around. Everybody wants it. Everybody's going to take their piece.
U.S. signs deal with Google to develop chips for researchers. This is in Minnesota. And it's also, with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Google's actually going to pay for a lot of this. So I've tried to read more about what's going on here because I thought this was some kind of a pork bill to extract money from the CHIPS Act by some kind of quid pro quo. But I don't know. Maybe
this
not.
is the tools to develop the chips, not the fab itself.
Yeah.
So,
but it's still not anything immediately useful, which is why I thought.
But it is something we lack.
Yeah.
In comparison to other places.
Yeah.
So.
And University of Minnesota. Somebody want to engage me challenge in the comments?
Engage me challenge.
To explain why Minnesota and not,
It is cold there.
They've been trying to get new business in there, right? Weren't they?
Yeah, but like
Well, it's
University
true
of
everywhere.
Minnesota, that wasn't on my radar for advanced semiconductor research.
Maybe Google got a sweetheart deal because of that. Got to start somewhere, right? And this is interesting. I would like to watch a video of this. I didn't go to YouTube. I'm going to see if I can find it. I'd like to see how it works. I thought about like, hey, maybe it'd be fun. We could stream it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, $350.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, they are taking advantage of these young autistic children. Oh no, wait, not autistic. ADHD. Yeah.
EndeavorRX, an FDA-approved video game treatment for ADHD.
So it is called.
$350.
What was the name of this thing?
I don't remember.
There was another one. Now there is one for adults that people had used before and thought that it was useful. This is Endeavor. Oh, Endeavor was in the title. Duh. But there's an adult one, and I was thinking about checking that one out. I can't. It's in here in the article somewhere. But anyway, this is a new one. The whole idea is the game is to separate the noise from the signal. You have to try to figure out what to focus on, and I guess that's like a muscle you can exercise.
Is that like, what was that game we played? Overcooked? It's kind of the same premise.
I got that kind of that tingly sensation playing Myst because there was a lot of stuff that was happening in Myst that wasn't immediately relevant, and then when you had to move forward, you had to remember something that happened like an hour ago, and that was an interesting mental sensation.
I believe this is probably much more immediate. Like distractions on the screen and then the thing that they want you to win at.
Interesting.
Or maybe not. Maybe it's the long term. Again, it'd be very interesting to try it out, right?
Yeah.
What if you played it and you were terrible at it? Like, what does that tell you about yourself?
What if it's just like boring? What if the game itself is just boring? And you're
I would
like,
expect that if you
Yeah.
have normal intelligence and you're working with somebody who has a disability, then yeah, it seems like, you know.
I already think enough bad introspective thoughts.
And we got new legal action in Europe against Google. Now, this is different than the one we talked about last week. Last week we talked about them appealing, but this is something else.
Google faces a $25 billion legal action in the UK and the EU. This is unfolding, but one of the really, really dumb things here is the court said that Apple is a different market, and so they don't apply. It's just, what? Because Android is the key player here. Is like Android has supplanted competition, but iPhone is somehow a different market. Okay.
That doesn't make a lick of sense.
Well, does it ever? And, of course, once again, these headlines never stop. What do you think they pay out a year? What does Google pay a year? And
It's
all
going up
this?
every year.
Probably
Yeah.
millions. Yeah.
Now, this is
Billions.
billions of won, but the won
Oh.
is like, there's like 1,300 per dollar.
This was 49 million US dollars.
Yeah, so not quite as much as you think, but still not a trivial number.
South Korea fines Google and Meta billions of won for privacy violations. About $49 million.
Still a lot.
I'm sure they did violate some privacy. And remember Luna?
Yeah.
Luna had some bad times. Now, there were two guys that co-founded Luna, I think, right? They got one and brought him in, but not the other. However, if he thought he was safe, he was wrong.
South Korea issues an arrest warrant for Do Kwon. Luna dropped nearly 50% as a result. So I think this article has a quote from Do Kwon from like 2 or 3 months ago. And he said, yeah, we sent the prosecutor's office a bunch of information they requested, but they haven't told us what they're investigating us for, or they haven't charged us with anything, or blah, blah, blah. But now there's an arrest warrant, so presumably there are charges pending.
I don't know what the legal system's like there, but why would you send them a bunch of information if they don't have a reason to?
They're trying to cooperate. It's like, look, this is new territory. Don't arrest us.
I mean, they know something went wrong. They know there's a problem. And we have, once again, we saw this last week, or I guess that was earlier this week.
It was,
wasn't
yeah, 'cause we
not
did a
even
live
last
episode.
week, but it'll be last week for them. The Spider-Man meme is now China pointing at us for hacking, which is probably true.
China accuses the NSA of hacking a top university to steal data. But what you should do, what you should take away from this, probably, it actually looks like they used a whole bunch of tools to do this. But China actually made a lot of this public. So if you want to learn about how these kinds of intelligence operations work, you can go look at this. There's some really advanced tools. There's some really interesting stuff here.
I thought they had a list, but no, yeah. They seem to have done a pretty good diagnostic, a troubleshoot of what exactly happened.
It's like, okay, Equation Group did this, and then we saw some stuff over here, and then this other thing came from there, and it's like, wow, that's impressive.
Now, when you read this headline, assuming that you don't listen to every moment of this broadcast, and if you're outraged by this, remember that we're doing this to our babies over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every single baby. So not really that, I mean, it's dystopian, but you can't really put them down for it.
Once again, the pointing Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
Always relevant.
The Vice headline is China is harvesting DNA from thousands of Tibetans. The headline could have been, the U.S. is harvesting DNA from the heels of thousands of babies to do, quote-unquote, blood tests.
I guess it's a little bit different because in the babies, there's an excuse. We want to screen for diseases.
Yeah,
like that's a
genetic
valid.
disorder.
We want to screen for diseases, but we also want to retain the blood sample to use in the future.
That's a big part of the problem.
Yeah.
We're going to let law enforcement have this eventually. But what they're doing in Tibet is literally just going door to door.
What do you need this for? Don't worry about it.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And they talked about how they went to schools and no parent got any kind of permission slip or anything like that. We're just going and we're taking blood. And there's the history of Tibet
Well, yeah.
being a bit of an issue. And was this the WordPress one?
No,
That
this
one's
is
later.
The commerce one.
Oh, Magento, right? Yeah.
Fish bait.
We're in the security section now, in case you didn't notice. And guess what? More exploits.
Breach of software maker used to backdoor e-commerce servers. The bad guys compromised the people that make the software, and then the software was distributed from the people that make the software, and then they had control of lots and lots of e-commerce software.
So you're supposed to reinstall immediately. Could be hiding in any one of those locations, or it could be running as one of those things. I'm sorry.
Which is basically anywhere.
Yeah, that's all things that you need. Terrible. And Microsoft Teams has a bit of a security issue. The most disturbing thing about this comes at the very bottom of the story when Microsoft responded and said, no, we're not going to fix that.
Microsoft Teams stores auth tokens as clear text in Windows, Linux, and Macs. Those auth tokens, they're what you get after you do the two-factor. So if you get an auth token, you can bypass two-factor.
Yeah. So they said that. Now the thing about it is, you can only get to those if you have physical access to the machine, or if you were to phish somebody.
Yeah.
Not that that ever happens at large organizations, so
Right. Yeah.
no worries.
And not that if you were to phish, I don't know, the lead developer and get on his teams and tell everybody else that they need to send him certain things, they would probably do it. Teams is such a mess. Here's an unfortunate thing, but you can't really blame them, right? Because we had, how many supply chain attacks do we have this year and last year?
There's at least a half a dozen really high-profile ones. And who
Then-
knows how many little ones.
Then we had the activist
Yeah.
maintainers who were screwing up software on purpose. So if you can't trust it, what do?
Nearly 1 in 2 industry pros scaled back open source use over security fears. Remember Log4j and other stuff like Log4j? Well, it's kind of like that. Although I think that there's probably just as much of a risk in other packages as that kind of stuff. Because Log4j, a million people had looked at it and it never occurred to anybody, oh, wait, this is insanely dangerous.
Yeah, and you never know when one's going to get poisoned on purpose.
A million people looked at Teams and said, oh, there's no way that anybody's going to exploit the fact that the token is stored in plain text. That's crazy. What if you download the rogue Node.js module that reads your team cookie file and then it uploads malicious stuff to your Node repository?
And Netflix has a different kind of authentication problem. A little too much authentication on the same account by different people. And when they tried to do something about this, the people really kind of took a crap on that.
Yeah.
They were not, it was like, you know what, that's really where I get my value from your service. So without it, I'm not sure I want it.
Adobe has an answer for Netflix's password sharing problem, which is how Adobe deals with the Creative Suite. And, it can be activated on 2 computers at once, and it's just garbage.
So this is, I think it's going to be a little different than that because it's going to be an AI. So it looks at, like it'll let you log in, but it's monitoring all of those things as you're logging in. And if it gets suspicious, then you're going to get flagged. And once you get flagged, they haven't quite decided what they'll do about it because Netflix is not on board with this. This is just Adobe like, we will give this to you, or we'll sell it to you. So it's not automatic, but it would, they think, identify the people who are doing this.
Definitely no one at this table. Definitely didn't get a pop-up last night that said too many people are watching this account.
Well, they're not using it right now.
No, it popped up for me though last night.
But Netflix is not using Adobe's thing.
Yeah.
They have their own thing,
Right.
which is, it's a light touch, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid that, which is probably true.
People will just cancel, yeah.
Yeah, you just be like, well, okay, I won't do that anymore.
Time to build your own media server. Check out the Level 1 back catalog and build your own media server.
And online gaming, man, it is rife with cheaters. And they do ruin the experience
Yeah.
pretty badly. But the cure is perhaps worse than the disease. Maybe just not play games rather than do this.
EA announces kernel-level anti-cheat system for PC games for FIFA 23. I will not be installing this.
Well, we were never going to install
No.
FIFA 23
Who
anyway.
cheats at a soccer game?
Oh, that's they do like competitive esport.
It's crazy. I don't know. I guess I don't know anyone who really plays it. I think it's probably more popular outside of the U.S.
If you need a primer on why this is a bad idea, you should look into the Sony rootkit debacle from like 15 years ago. Sony put software on their music CDs so that if you put it in a computer, it would install this exact same kernel level, anti-cheat thing. But in this case, it wasn't anti-cheat; it was anti-rip audio CDs. So even though you have the right to rip audio CDs, it would modify your computer so that you couldn't rip audio CDs with mysterious and weird failure reasons. And they didn't ask permission to do that. They didn't say they were going to do that. They just did it.
It's weird how they're still a company.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't get sued into oblivion for tortious interference, for trespassing, or destruction of private property. None of that seemed to apply. It's weird.
When you guys go to an ATM, do you cover up the keypad when you type?
Yeah.
I'm always like, but the thing about it is you look, because the ATM, the way that's recessed, that camera could be anywhere.
Yeah.
So you have to be, lean in on it. And,
I also try to lift the keypad and stuff.
yeah, but
I try not to go to an ATM if I absolutely have to.
it turns out they're just getting better and better.
This is impressive.
Also, bank branches have disappeared.
Yeah.
There's no way to do actual banking. It has to be automated at this point. And when that happens, tugging on things ain't going to help you here.
Yeah.
This is really, really well done.
Say hello to crazy thin deep insert ATM skimmers. So this thing goes inside the card reader and fits in the card reader with your card. How bananas is that?
Half the height of a dime.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's like a piece of paper.
And now, fortunately, they require a camera. You have to put a camera somewhere else, or a sideways camera, I guess. So if you do cover the keypad, you're okay. Plus, this is reading the mag strip. So if you do the contact, they can't get it. Most ATMs have that now. Not all.
They talked about how they're going to have to put cameras inside the ATM in the card reader to look if there's something other than the card in the card reader, because they're not hardened that way right now.
Well, I gotta wonder, the installation of that should raise a flag, right? How long do you think it takes to install that?
Seconds.
With the camera?
Yeah. I've seen them do the old school ones, and it's just some dude just walks up and it's just and they're done.
There has to be some way that we can measure modifications to an ATM, right?
I don't know. The one that I saw that they did that, there was a whole other duplicate keypad on top of the keypad, and it wasn't super thick. I mean, it wasn't thin as half as a dime, but it was really thin, and it completely replaced the top of because the keypad was horizontal, and it completely replaced the top of the KVM. So if you wiggled on it, the keypad wouldn't come loose unless you lifted the entire piece of plastic.
They do say it's very rare. It is statistically way more likely somebody's just going to come up behind you and put a gun in your back or hit you in the head, take your money. So,
Oh, that makes me feel better.
probably easier to get insurance to pay out on that one.
Can you imagine a version of the ATM that's like a Securitron from Fallout? It's like you go up to it and it's like the Securitron's like, oh, are you a banking customer? Yes. And it's like, I'll protect you from the mob. And it's like, no, I'm just here to cash a check. And it's like, sorry, this guy's going to mug you.
And here's a shocker. If like Wendell, you're having a drink right now, if you're standing up, I would sit down, put it down, brace yourself. There's been a WordPress exploit.
Over 280,000 WordPress sites may have been hijacked by a popular plugin, a zero-day exploit in a popular plugin. It was the, what was the plugin? I always hate it when they don't tell you the name of the plugin.
This was
It's a management plugin, WP Gateway.
Oh, right, yeah.
So if you use WP Gateway to manage a whole host of WordPress installations, because let's face it, managing WordPress installations manually is like the lowest tier of computer janitorial work. You probably want tools to automate it. Well, WP Gateway was targeted for by bad guys, and the bad guys were able to break in and co-opt it and use it to distribute malware. Kind of sucks.
And it is almost always the third-party stuff that gets you with WordPress.
Yeah.
But without that third-party stuff, what is WordPress?
Pretty much nothing, I would argue. But I'm trying to think, do we have any WordPress sites left at this point? We do.
There's a few.
No, actually, I think I handed those off to somebody else. I don't know if they still exist, but
Yeah, I think I can only think of one client from years ago who I know had an old WordPress install.
There's a few stragglers that still like try to DIY it, and it just ends up being it's like, oh,
this happens, and then they're like, why is it broken?
Yeah, it's like you just copied this to the server, and you didn't even look at it, and you copied malware to the server. Like you didn't even look at what you were copying. Like, why would you do that?
Well, you can't depend on your users.
No,
That's the problem, and Microsoft has learned that the hard way. And their approach to it is to just simply take away all of your agency. They just say, yeah, you're not allowed to do anything. We'll handle it all for you.
Microsoft 365 now auto updates apps on locked or idle devices. If anything, it's going to work. If it's going to work like the Windows 10 and 11 automatic updates, Windows seems to have learned that when I step away from my computer to get lunch, that's a great time to install updates. So it closes everything and it just destroys everything. And it's like, hey, maybe don't do that during lunch. And it says, okay. And then
does it anyway.
Invariably, after the next update, my preferences on when I would like to update are changed.
Also, remember that time that they put the update that destroyed everybody's files?
Yeah.
You won't be able to opt out of that. Although I guess you couldn't then either.
You lost your files because you weren't using the cloud. That's not your fault.
Oh, yeah.
If your files were stored in the cloud, then they couldn't be deleted.
Oh man, you know what? This would have went great with the other DNA story, but let's have a DNA cap, a bookends of DNA horror this week on the Level 1 show.
A woman who was assaulted very badly, and her DNA was taken as a result of her assault, was arrested in San Francisco for a property crime that had nothing to do with her assault. So years ago, she was assaulted, and her DNA was collected as evidence. And then later, the police found DNA evidence at the crime scene. They ran it through the database. They found her, and they arrested her.
I'm sure that they worked really hard on that assault case, too.
Tragic, but you know who I feel like is a loser? Not the biggest loser because she suffered, obviously. But a loser that's being overlooked here is the victim of the property crime. Because they've dropped that case now.
Yeah.
That'll never, she'll just walk on that.
Wow.
Because of this headline. Because this is poisonous. They can't prosecute this because it came from such a terrible place. A jury is going to throw this right out. So they're just like, that crime never happened.
Did they find her assailant? Was that mentioned?
I don't know.
Years ago.
They actually don't tell you much about the case because they say that they will not release details about her name or anything like that because she is a victim of sexual assault. So we don't know much about it other than they did a terrible thing.
They just put it on the pile.
All we got to do is connect the Babyfoot database to all the other databases.
The Babyfoot.
Well, she might have been too old for Babyfoot.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. Short ones this week, gang, because we live streamed on Tuesday. Just wasn't enough time for news to build up.
We still love you.
Slow times. That's good, though. That's a positive.
Is it?
It gives them time to enjoy the fall weather.
Yeah.
Not all in the fall biome right now.
Well, they're enjoying the spring weather in Australia, as we'll have a story in the nonsense section.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Just go outside and enjoy fall and or spring weather.
The canola fields. Go enjoy the canola fields if you're in Australia.
But don't enjoy them too hard.
Yeah, enjoy in front of the canola fields from the highway. Don't trespass.
There's no such thing as a canola field. We'll talk more about that when we get to that story.
All right.